Beer, am I right? One of the greatest inventions of all time. Right up there with fire, the wheel, maybe even sweatpants. But at the end of the day, beer just didn't show up out of thin air. It didn't show up all hazy and hoppy and nice and sweet and malty. Beer was one of those things that evolved over the course of time. When you boil it down, beer has been through a lot. It's been through plagues. It's been through Prohibition, the industrial age, and it even has a pretty interesting comeback story. Today we're cracking open the history book for a brief little glimpse of the entire history of beer. So join me, will you? Now, quite frankly, beer dates back quite a ways. I mean, we're talking maybe in excess of around 10,000 years. The first beers were not brewed on purpose, though. They were just happy accidents. For the most part, grain simply got wet, wild yeast did its thing, and all of a sudden, early humans realized, hey, this soggy bread kind of makes life a little bit better. The Sumerians, for instance, they absolutely loved beer. You may be asking yourself, how do we know this? Well, historians have found a lot of references to beer from the ancient Sumerians. They developed over 20 different kinds of beer. They paid workers in beer, and they literally worshipped a goddess of beer. Seems like a pretty good system, honestly. Historically speaking, from the ancient Sumerians all the way to the Egyptians, beer wasn't just a drink. It was straight up nutrition. This was a different time. You can't think of beer like we do today. The beers that were around during the ancient Sumerians and the Egyptians, these beers were thick, they were cloudy, but they were also safer than water, which makes quite a bit of sense because if water could kill you, beer was basically healthcare. In ancient Egypt, beer was given to the builders of the pyramid. And believe it or not, kids in ancient Egypt drank beer. The pharaohs were even buried in it. Beer helped people settle down. It helped them farm grains, and it helped them build cities. Some historians even argue that beer existed prior to even bread, which is pretty wild. Let that sink in for a second. All right, now we're going to fast forward quite a ways. Between the ancient Egyptians and the Middle Ages, there wasn't a whole lot going on in the industry of beer. But all of that changes with one group of people, monks. Now, monks, you may be asking, why monks? Monks were the original brewers. These people not just loved beer, but they kind of needed it. Again, water was not safe during the Middle Ages, and so brewing beer just made sense. Being monks, monks needed to fast. Beer was not considered to be food. Remember what I said before about beer being nutrition? That's what I mean. Monks also had a lot of time to experiment. This was a time in which monks were being actually hired by kings and queens and nobility to create different styles of beer for them, but also give commoners kind of less quality beer. Middle Ages was also when there were some big changes in beer itself. First and foremost, because of all those experimentations, late Middle Ages up until the Renaissance, and even after that, you had people begin to experiment with hops. Hops were just not added for flavor and balance. Hops were preservatives. They helped prevent the beer from spoiling. You have to also think that brewing got cleaner and it got a little bit more consistent. All that experimentation that the monks were doing pays off big time. Beer styles actually started to resemble quite a bit of what we actually consider beer to be today. So, if anything, we need to thank the monks for our IPAs, don't we? And then, science shows up. You may be asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? Science is great, right? Yeah, science is great. After the Middle Ages, with the age of science and the scientific revolutions coming around, people were beginning to do all kinds of interesting things. With the invention of the microscope, you had the discovery of yeast for the first time. And so industrialization becomes a driving force in the beer industry. You have the development of refrigeration. You have pure strains of yeast being developed. And you also have mass production. That sounds great. There's a problem in all of this. During this era, the industrial age, beers became lighter. They became faster to produce and less flavorful. A little bit more generic than what was previously done. Things during this age were all about maximizing volume and minimizing character. Consistency won, creativity loses. Beer survived, but it was kind of on its last leg. It got boring. And now, probably one of the darkest chapters for beer itself, Prohibition. Prohibition went from the 1920s all the way to 1933. Now, during this era, breweries shut down. It sounds a little bit like the COVID era, doesn't it? On top of that, recipes were lost forever. I mean, think about that. Ages and ages of beer development and experimentation, right out the door. During Prohibition, you also have generations of people who forgot what beer tasted like. Wow. That doesn't seem like a very good time at all. And then when you throw into the mix the Great Depression, no wonder why people were so depressed. Now, some breweries did end up squeaking by throughout Prohibition, and they did so in some very, very interesting and wild ways. They created sodas. They created breweries that specialized in ice cream. And you also had the birth of something strange, something a little bit different. It's what they called near beers. When you think near beers, you need to be thinking about basically this modern day and age of NAs, non-alcoholic beers. Near beers were nothing more than beers that had a very, very low ABV. We're talking 0.5%. It wasn't enough to get people really buzzed unless you really had a lot of them, and they didn't really have to worry about the law coming after them. Ice cream breweries. Wild times. Now, when Prohibition ended, this marked a new beginning. Beer came back, but it was watered down, and it was mass marketed. Doesn't sound like we're going anywhere really nice right now, does it? Between 1933 and all the way up until the late 1970s, there wasn't a lot taking place. But in that late 1970s age, a new revolution begins. Birth of the beer nerds. Yes, that's right, home brewers, weirdos, flavor aficionados. These were people that heightened everyone's awareness about the glories of beer. People who said, why does beer all taste the same, began to think to themselves, well, let's change that. The age of craft beer ends up bringing back many different things. Old styles that were once honestly forgotten. New hops from different areas of not just the United States, but all over the world. And then you also have creativity without limit. This was an era where IPAs exploded. Lagers received respect once again, and sours went absolutely feral. And suddenly, beer just wasn't a drink. It was part of culture once again. Beer today is basically everything it's ever been. It has been through a lot, all the way from ancient times to modern times, from simple to complex to comforting to experimental. Beer has been through it all. Whether you like drinking a macro lager or a triple dry hopped hazy IPA, you are part of this 10,000 year history of beer, which is pretty cool. So here's to beer. Here's to the accidents, the monks, the rebels, and also those comeback kids that saved beer. Now, if you've enjoyed this little history lesson regarding beer, make sure that you guys hit that like button. You subscribe to a little bit of upcoming content, maybe a little bit of chaos, and some beer school episodes I've got brewing in my head. Tell me in the comments, what beer do you think has had the wildest journey? And we'll see you next time. Cheers.